Hello and welcome to another episode of the Illimitable Experience podcast. If you're watching this video, like this video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channel. And overall, we guys like, share, and subscribe. We are posting great content regularly. With that, today we have as our guest Divya Ahuja, who I've known since my school days. Hi Divya, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. So, what have you been up to lately?
I've been working full time. I'm working full time as a developer in the IT industry. I work for TCS. And so basically I've been very busy with my job, but then I've also like it's important to have work-life balance. So I go for Zumba, which is like dance exercise, and then I go to the gym. So that I have a work-life balance and I don't get completely pulled into my job. But I love my job and I love the off time as well. Like both are
But
important.
I'm glad that you are maintaining that work-life balance. I'm really glad, and maintaining your physical health as well. So,
Mm,
Divya, we have been in contact for quite some time, although
mhm.
irregularly, but we have been in contact. And
Yes.
what one thing that has really kept us in touch is our inclination towards mental well-being and mental illnesses. That
Mhm.
even not only that we have suffered, but also that others might be suffering in talking about those things.
Yes.
So, Divya, can you tell me about what has been the case with you, and how does it how did it come to happen?
Okay, so it started when I was quite young. I had a difficult life in school. Like school wasn't easy for me. It was not easy for me to make friends. It was not easy for me to mix with everyone because I had a different set of ideologies. I had a different set of values that I came from, which was like, it was like I was quite different from everyone else in the way I thought and the way I behaved. So I found it difficult to mix. Found it difficult to make friends and all of that. Just something. So it's a two-way street. Okay, it's something from my end, something from their end. It's always like that when you're making friends and you're making friendships. So I've worked on all of those things, but as a kid, those things affected me, and even at home, I felt like I don't fit, and like I was also like from I was in ICSE, so there was like a lot of studies and a lot of pressure to perform well. So these kind of things that they started affecting me, they started affecting my well-being, my mental well-being. And it's like when you're young, you don't know about these things because
Hmm.
especially when in the society we live in, it's not that publicized, it's not that spoken about. So you don't even know what you're going through. Okay, and sometimes when you are like, you have this mental clogs and these uh things that come in the way of the way you think, the way you live, uh it's like you don't know what you're going through, and no, neither does anybody else. So they might label you, they might say that you're rude, you're lazy, and at one point of time you also start believing that maybe that's the truth, even though within you have the desire to do the things that you just can't because of what you're facing or what you're going through, but you don't realize why you can't. So then you just accept the easiest possible explanation that it's you're probably lazy. But and that's what happened with me as well. Like I used to beat myself up a lot about not being able to perform as well as I thought I could, not being able to focus on things I enjoyed. Like I loved studying, but I couldn't focus. I just couldn't do it, and I didn't know why. So that's like the gist of my childhood. But as I grew up, I met different people from different aspects of life, and it's like I actually came across the term anxiety. I came across the term depression, and I realized how much I related to it. And even at this point, now I understood what I was going through, but the people around me didn't. Okay, so despite knowing what I was going through, I almost believed that, yeah, I'm still lazy, something like that. But then when I started working, okay, even college was quite difficult. It was an engineering college, and that is, it made my issues worse, quite worse. Like I got panic attacks and stuff for the first time, and I had no idea what's happening to me. I didn't know this is a panic attack. I knew I had anxiety, but I didn't know this is what a panic attack feels like. And nobody around me knew either. Okay. So I actually ended up in the hospital because of this, because nobody knew what is happening to me. And the hospital, I found out, okay, it's a panic attack. This is what a panic attack feels like. And but like still, and now I knew what I was going through, but the people around me didn't understand. I got to hear a lot of stuff about it from college. There were teachers who used to talk behind my back saying that I was lazy and I was faking it just to get out of exams, just to get out of studying. I wanted the easy way out. I had people who said those things about me. And after like a year of going through this, I was like, maybe that's true. Maybe I am like lazy or something. Like this is like, I know I'm repeating this a lot, but that's how it happens, you know? Like you actually, these things set you at a war with yourself. Like everything you believed in, every person you believe in is not agreeing with you. How do you stay, you know, on the path of what you believe in? It's very difficult because you need that kind of support. So this went on till I started working. And when I started working, of course, work life is way different from student life. Okay. You just can't make mistakes here. Okay. And the pressure is way more than what it's like at a school level or a college level. So this is when I decided that I'm going to seek help, because I had the financial independence. I had that liberty that I can explore this aspect. So I took help. And once I started receiving the help, right, it changed my life. Okay. It completely changed my life. I began to live to my true potential. I began to do things that I just couldn't before. Like I just couldn't do certain things. I always felt like I'm held back by something, and that all vanished. And it made me believe in myself again. Okay, I'm not lazy. I was just going through something and I needed some help to get out of it. I couldn't get out of it alone. You know, some people can, which is great for them. Like I feel so good for them that they can get out of it on their own, but I wasn't that person who could. And there's nothing shameful about it. Sometimes people do need help, and it's okay to need help. Okay. You're not born with the skills, all the skill sets you need to survive. In fact, I feel like human beings are the only species that is like not born with that skill set. You learn it over your life duration, and sometimes you just don't come across the things, the tools that can help you. So, so yeah, that's
Right.
like a gist of what I went through. Yeah.
Right. You know, this is really true that sometimes the origin of the mental illness is not internal, but it is mostly external. Like just like you said, when you were in school and when you were in college, there is a lot of pressure to perform. Okay, so it's not that we are deliberately putting ourselves in a position where we want to suffer from mental health, but it's the external condition that is so strong that really, you know, kind of breaks the person, and then, you know, puts you in that zone where it is a very dark zone. And then people, you know, realize it over time that okay, this is something serious and I need to work on it. No, with I also, just like you said, this is something that I've heard from people who have been suffering with mental health, that whenever these topics come up, right? Okay, just like you said, when you were in college and you had a panic attack, the teachers would say that Are, she is lazy, or she's XYZ, she is ABC, whatever. In my case, it was a similar case. Now this college professor also, like, uh, we had an argument about something, and she judged me, okay, to my face. She's telling me that you are incompetent. And when I told her, ma'am, why are you calling me incompetent, she, now obviously I went to a law college, so she was also a lawyer, so that her immediate response was, I didn't call you incompetent. You know what, you should, next time you should record the conversation that we are having, so that you know that I'm not calling you incompetent. So you get that what would you say? This is called gaslighting, right? Where you are deliberately putting that emotion into other person, and when the other person is reacting, they are like, no, you better record the conversation. That's not what I said. or you better hear carefully what I'm saying to. So yeah, such things have been, I mean, it's not like mandatory that people should face it, but the people who don't suffer it or people are not aware of it usually term this as laziness or incompetence, or low on self-esteem, or low on confidence, or things like that. But internally it is quite difficult to address this, that problem, that okay, this is not that the other person is calling me, that's why I'm this. It's something internally that I'm not able to do it. So Divya, how much would you say that the education system that we have in India is
Mm.
responsible for putting students through the mental illnesses? And it's not only you who might be suffering, there might also be many other people who might be suffering, but it says that they don't have that awareness, or maybe they are just so much, constraining themselves that they don't want to talk about it, or they, let it go easy, saying that, "Arey, ye sabke sath hota hai." राइट, यू
Mhm.
मस्ट हैव हर्ड दोस थिंग कि ये सबके साथ होता है,
Mhm.
ऑफिस में बॉस तो सबको गाली देता ही है, सो इट्स नॉट अ बिग इश्यू, things like that. So how much, the education system is, that responsible for such mental illnesses?
Okay, so the education system as a whole does not have bad intentions, okay? But what I
Hmm.
think is the people who are responsible for executing the education system, those are the people who enforce this. Because, like, I mean, so one thing that I come across a lot is that people always say that why is memorization given so much importance in the education system? Okay, so this it's widely bashed concept that memorization shouldn't be a part of the education system. But if you take a look at the way you learn things, okay, memorization is a core aspect of it. Okay, so like if you didn't remember the ABCD, you couldn't learn anything apart from like ahead of that. If you don't know
Hmm.
the letters of the alphabet, so it's important. Memorization is important, but it's not the only thing. Okay, that should be focused on. Okay, memorization is important. It's not something that can be moved from the education system, but it is not the only thing. And this is a thing that people forget. Okay, so when a teacher teaches a concept, she will not go deep into it, or she will not, make the student understand it. So now when you understand something, you rarely forget it. Okay, when you truly understand a concept, you rarely forget it. So, but the teacher herself or himself will, like, force you to memorize rather than understand. So this is the part, okay, where the pressure starts building, because you cannot memorize something you don't understand. Because even if you manage, you can do it, of course. You can rote learn, that's easy, but it does not last. You can remember it for a year at max. After that, you won't remember it because you rote learned it. So it's not really adding any value. It's like you're just focusing on getting those marks. Okay, that focus on getting that a particular percentage or a particular score, that focus is wrong. Okay, so it just tells you that you need to put your entire focus on memorization to be successful in life, whereas it's exactly the opposite. You have to focus on understanding to be successful in life, and that understanding will help you memorize. Memorization is needed, but understanding is needed more to actually get to the memorization part. So when you force someone to rote learn, when you force someone to focus on the marks rather than how much they've understood the subject material, you're putting unnecessary pressure on the child. Okay, first thing is that you're ruining their career, because you cannot be successful if you don't understand the basic concepts. You cannot understand the building blocks. Like my mother's a teacher, and there are kids that have come to her then the 8th and 9th standard, they don't know division, they don't know multiplication. So it's like, yes, that is the state of the education system today, because the focus is on memorization. Kids memorize things and they go and just write them in the paper. The questions that are taught in the class come in the exam. The kids memorize the answers and they just write them blindly. They don't understand what is the meaning. behind it, and that's how they are clearing classes and moving ahead levels. Okay, so this is the state of the education system today. It is putting unnecessary pressure on the child, and it's ruining their careers, ruining their future. We have so many engineers today, but a very small fraction of them are employable. Okay, and this is real facts, real statistics. I'm not making this up. So this is the state of the education system, because either they were not allowed to understand the concepts, they were forced to memorize them, maybe because of the short duration between the teaching and the examination period, or they were put under so much stress that they just can't work anymore. They become like they're mentally they've been put under so much pressure that they just can't perform. Okay, so these are the two things about the education. These are the things about the education system that is ruining the youth of today. Okay,
Right.
so this is
I guess it's not only in terms of the way they are making the function universities function. I guess, and this can be a part of the reason, but not completely the reason, that when an ex-professor is put in the position of power, okay, where he has to evaluate the papers of many students. Now the students that regularly are in the good books of the teacher, they end up scoring well, and the students who are not that much interactive with the teacher, or not as much active in the college fest or other activities where they are standing out in the crowd, but they are just focusing on their studies, so they don't get to interact with teachers. So those students end up in the bad books of the teacher, and that biasness is always there. As a person, does not matter how much, you know it is a normal inclination to be biased. Even even if we are aware, not aware, that is not the question, but we are biased in every sense. So those teacher end up giving the students who are regularly interacting with them like a easy go on their marks, but the students who haven't interacted with them, they end up scoring marginally okay-ish marks. That's what I think. Because and that really makes the student question कि अरे ये concept तो मैंने कल ही काफी अच्छे से पढ़ा था. I know the concept very well and I can explain it to others the concept very well. But while writing, obviously the students can be at fault too, that he might have forgotten words, but there is also this possibility where the teacher has been biased. Okay, you know what, let's just give him 5 out of 10 rather than giving him 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10.
Okay, so you're talking about favoritism. Okay, and so like see, those teachers that you're talking about, they are also a product of the current education system. Okay, they were taught to memorize, and they expect that out of you. Okay, so the reason they're cutting your marks, is because your answer is not the exact thing they said in class. Your answer may make complete sense. Okay, your answer may make complete sense, but the teacher will give it less marks because it's not what she taught, or what he or she
right.
taught. Yes, so this is because they are a product of the current education system, where there is a focus on, okay, so they know only one thing as right, which is what they memorized. Okay, and if they don't see that in your paper, they're not even going to take the time to understand what you've written. They will straight away cut your marks. And there are a lot of teachers like this. Okay, there are a lot of teachers like what they teach, they want to see that in the paper. They don't care if you got the concept right. They don't care if you've understood it right. And what is this? Okay, this is the reason why, ICSE board is kind of like better than the other boards. Because this doesn't happen in ICSE. ICSE has a focus on conceptual learning, which is why I have in my personal experience noticed that children who study from ICSE board, they tend to do better in life than the kids who come out from the other boards. Okay, because in ICSE board there's a conceptual focus and not on the memorization part, basically, at least in the final exams in the boards. I'm not talking about the exams before that because those are in the hands of the teachers. So, right. Yes. So this is the thing, right? It's a vicious circle because the teachers today are born out of the education system itself. Okay, the focus on the memorization and all of that. They're born out of that. They have all gone through that same thing, And favoritism is something that, yes, it is human nature sometimes to favoritism and all. But as a teacher, it is their responsibility to not do that, you know. It's like a moral violation for them to do that, because like, I mean, I'm going to reference a meme over here, because like there is this like literally like they show that teachers are, you know, give all their attention to the bright students, and the students that actually need help get left behind. Okay. Yeah, so I think you got the visual. I
Yeah,
think you got
yeah.
the visual.
Yes, there is in those common lines now, you know, since you're also from an ICSE board, in ninth or 10th standard, we had this, in Rapid Reader, we had this book, As You Like It. Okay, and I
Yeah.
remember this line very correctly. So there was this character, I don't remember the character, but he was crying, and he was crying on the riverside. So the gesture in the book said that, look at this guy, he's such a fool for crying near the riverside. Why? Because he is already adding water to something that already has a lot of water.
Okay, I don't remember this line, but that's
See, that's the thing about ICSE, right? Now it's been like 7 to 8 years since you have left school, right? But even if you give me Rapid Reader, like As You Like It, and Merchant of Venice, we'll still have that fun, you know, array, this was really fun reading and studying that. So, and there are a few lines that has really stayed in my mind, like a it has been printed in my mind. You know, I can never forget those lines.
same,
Yeah.
same. Like
So
I
this is
still
one of
remember.
those lines.
Yeah, it's an amazing line. Like I can understand why I left an impression, and like it is completely valid in this situation what we're talking about. And like and what you spoke about, you know, that you remember all those things that you learned as an ICE, like same. I remember I have like I can still see the pages of my textbook that I had in 6th or 7th standard clearly in my mind, because I learned it conceptually and I
Uh,
never forgot it. Yeah. So
right, that's true. Yeah. So, Divya, when you said that when you were in college, you had a panic attack, how is it that, so let's say a person is not aware of what he's going through, and something
hmm.
like this happens, which is actually a panic attack. So, how does that person know that it's a attack? Like, what are the symptoms, or what is going through the person, which can say that a child is going through a panic attack?
Yeah, so this is I'm glad you asked me this, because this is something that is very less talked about. Even though I
Mm.
knew about anxiety, I did not know what a panic attack feels like. And I did not know for sure that it's happening to me. Like everybody tells you about the regular symptoms of anxiety, that is, you know, your heart rate rises, you feel nervous and all of that, but nobody talks about these unconventional symptoms, these unconventional feelings. Okay, so you know what a panic attack feels like? It feels you lose your breath, you feel like you can't breathe. Okay, and this is what makes a panic attack very scary. And like if you're experiencing a panic attack for the first time, just the fact that it's so scary can escalate your panic attack. And this is what used to happen with me, because I had no idea what I'm going through. So it your heart rate rises, of course, you feel dizzy, and a major symptom of panic attack is that you feel like you're losing your breath, you feel like you're going to die because you can't breathe properly. Okay, so what happens is, the reason this happens is because there is so much adrenaline in your body, okay, at that point of time, because of anxiety, that your body feels like you're doing some intense physical exercise, or you're in the flight or fight mode. So
Mm.
it feels like you need more oxygen, but your lungs are already at capacity. Okay, so you
Oh.
feel like you need to breathe more, you need to take in more air, but your lungs are already at capacity. So that's why you feel breathless. You feel like you're not able to
Mm.
breathe the amount you need to breathe. Okay, so you start feeling breathless, and this breathlessness can cause dizziness. Like I literally passed out, semi passed out in college, and because of the panic attacks, and at home also. So it really feels like, you know, you're dying. A panic attack feels like you're dying, literally. So that is what escalates it. Okay, like the more you try to breathe, the more you try to breathe that hard, the more anxious you get, the more your anxiety increases. So it is very important to take deep breaths and not give in to that desire to take a deeper breath, you know, like where you're struggling to breathe, it's important to, not go there, because that's just your body feeling like it needs more oxygen, but you don't. Okay, you really don't. You're all right. So if you catch it at that point, if you catch the panic attack at that point, it will not escalate and it will not go to that level where you pass out or something like that. So when I found out about panic attacks, what they are, what causes them, and all of that, it became easier for me to cope with them. But still, it's very difficult to go through. So when you have a panic attack, you will feel like crying for no reason. Okay, this is one very major symptom of it. You feel like crying for no reason. You feel breathlessness. You will be sweating. You will have cold sweats. And
What is what?
a
Cold
cold
sweat.
sweat.
What is?
A cold sweat is when it's cold outside, but so you usually sweat when you feel hot, right? But you are not feeling hot. You're feeling cold, but you're sweating. So that's called a cold sweat, and it is very common in anxiety. So anxiety often causes sweaty palms, and you sweating when you are not feeling hot. So this is like a symptom of anxiety, which is not talked about a lot. Okay, so yeah, so sweaty palms. When suppose you're nervous about something, you often get sweaty palms. Does it ever happen to you? Has it ever happened to you?
Yes. The sweaty palms, it does happen, but it is for when I asked my doctor about such a thing. So she told me it is I don't know the condition, but it's called some. It's not a psychological condition. She said it is. I don't remember the name of this thing where your palms and your feet sweat a lot when it is.
So there are other medical conditions that can cause that, for
Yeah,
sure.
that yeah. So it wasn't because of the anxiety, but the sweaty palms wala thing I can relate to. Yeah.
Yeah, so that happens because of anxiety as well. Okay, it happens. Like even if you are you into reading a lot?
Yes.
So you might have read when they show that the character is nervous about something, they get sweaty palms and cold
They
sweats.
start sweating is also right.
That's a cold sweat. Okay, so that's
Okay.
it. So it's not really feeling hot, but you're sweating because you're anxious. Okay, so these things happen.
Right.
So
As far as my experience goes with this panic attack thing, I did not have a severe one, but I've had the glimpses of the panic attack, and what I felt back then was it was like your nervous system. Okay, your nervous system kind of like shuts for like seconds. This is kind of a similar feeling.
yeah, so that is basically you're talking about you lose your ability to think. Is that what you're saying?
Not the ability to think, but it's just like you know how should I put it, numbness, I would say. Like you will feel that the blood is not circulating in that part for us for some time, like that.
Okay, so panic attacks can manifest differently for different people. So that's probably something that happens to you. Okay, because I've not experienced this. This is something that I've not experienced, but it might be specific to you because it can manifest differently in different people. Okay, so that is also one of the reasons why the symptoms are not so much talked about, because they sometimes because when you read up about panic attacks, you'll see that the symptoms can vary. Like sometimes just not being able to do anything, which is something that happens to me a lot. Like when I get a lot of anxiety, I just can't do anything. Like I just lose the ability to
Yeah.
do things.
Yeah, that thing. Yeah, I can't do
Yes,
anything. Yeah.
yes. That is also a form of panic attack, because you are how they say paralyzed by fear. It's literally that. It's
Yeah, exactly.
literally being paralyzed by fear. It's literally that. So that is also a form of panic attack. Okay, so panic attacks can take many forms, but the one of the main things that happen, it happens to a lot of people, is the breathlessness thing. So it is something that you will find commonly in journals and stuff like that.
With this anxiety related thing, so what is the cause of this anxiety? Like recently I came across something which I think is a cause of it. Now I don't know what the therapist or a psychologist would have to say, but it is called authority. Wait, I forgot. I know. Dave, can you pull up Google? Forgot what it's called now. Only like a two weeks ago or something. I found out when I was talking to one of my friend who is a therapist. Type in ODD. No, only ODD. ODD. Yeah, ODD. Mental health, right? Mental health. Yeah, mental disorder. Just yeah, this ODD mental disorder. Yeah, this one, oppositional defiant disorder. Yeah, Dev, can you click on that? Yeah, there, you just wait there. So I came across this like about a few weeks ago only, and I think this can be also like an you know the cause of anxiety where you are where when the person is put in front when is functioning with an authority, like
Mhm.
under a boss or under someone, in the leader or someone like that, these
Mhm.
people become like functionally paralyzed,
Okay.
so they can't perform the same work that they can perform in normal circumstances. Well,
Mhm.
like, so when normal circumstances, I mean, when there is no authority watching them. So right now, let's say if you're talking to me, you're able to talk about mental health very well, right? At the
Hmm.
same time, if your mother is watching or your boss was watching, that would really make you, like shaky, and it will really keep you closed, and you won't be able to talk freely about mental health as much as you are able to do. And it is mainly in terms of work only. So you are an engineer, right? So right now nobody has asked you to do some coding, right? So right now you're able to code things very well. But
Yeah.
when you are in office, when the work is particularly delegated to Divya Ahuja, that is
Mhm.
when you start cracking, and it is not even your fault. So this is something new that I came across.
So, the thing is, Manan, there are multiple disorders. Okay, there are many disorders, and almost all of them can cause anxiety. Okay, so it is not like there is one particular cause for anxiety, but it might be whatever you're going through. Okay, so like there is OCD, there's OCPD, there are multiple disorders. Okay,
Hmm.
so this is also something like a form of this, like even I like what you described, like sometimes it happens that when someone tells you to do something you were already going to do, you don't feel like doing it. Okay, that's something that
Hmm.
happens. Yes, so that's something that happens to a lot of people. Okay, so the thing is about anxiety, it is not rooted from one. You can't say that there's just one single cause for anxiety.
Acha.
Almost all disorders cause anxiety. Okay, because that is how they impair your function. The whole point of finding a disorder is so that you can find the root of that anxiety in you. Okay, in one particular person there will be only one disorder which will be causing that anxiety, or two disorders. It depends on the person. So that is the reason why we find these disorders and we say, okay, this is the root of your anxiety, but that's specific only to you. It does not apply to everyone else. So there are
Hmm.
multiple things that can cause anxiety, and there is also generalized anxiety disorder where there is no particular cause for this anxiety, and you're just anxious because of that disorder itself. Okay, so there are these type of things that come under anxiety, and also having anxiety for a long period of time causes depression. Okay, so
Hmm.
anxiety can cause depression. That is the reason why all disorders can cause depression. So anxiety and depression is how these disorders manifest. Okay, so
Hmm.
that's how they impair your life. Okay, so the whole point of finding a disorder is you find out what is the root cause of the anxiety and depression that is wrecking your life. Okay, so it's like that. Like there are also like, so basically there are two types of depression. One is your regular depression and regular clinical depression, and then there is anxious depression, depression caused by anxiety.
So
And
what is the difference between all the three of them? Like when you said general depression, clinical depression, and the third depression that you said.
so when you are feeling like sad and you just feel really, really low. You lose your desire to participate in things you like. You lose your desire to do things. So sometimes it's just because of one passing event. Suppose you lost someone who was close to you. Something really sad happened to you. Okay, so that is generalized depression, which can develop into clinical depression. Clinical depression is when there are certain when you just like, it's not just because of one reason, and it's like you begin to feel suicidal. You begin to get those kind of self-harming behavior, self-harming thoughts. So that is when your depression has crossed the line into clinical depression, when it starts affecting your day-to-day activities, when you can't function at work, you can't perform in college, you just can't. Okay, so that is when it starts taking that clinical depression, which needs immediate medical attention. Okay, so that is clinical depression. And anxious depression is when you have anxiety for so long that it develops into depression. And anxious depression is one of the most difficult depressions to treat, because it is tolerant towards most antidepressants. So so I have anxious depression. So I went through this. Like, most medicines did not work on me. So this was something that we struggled a lot with. And what antidepressant? So the antidepressant I am on right now is like a last resort antidepressant that is used when nothing else works. And luckily that worked for me. So basically, anxious depression is the most difficult to treat, because it is the cause is an anxiety. Okay, when your anxiety is causing a depression. So basically, there is this thing that people often suffer with. They're like, my anxiety wants me to live, and my depression wants me to die. It's like that. So they are just so polar opposite. You get stuck in between. Okay, so it is like one of the most difficult types of depression to treat. So these are the different types of depression. And yeah.
How is it that any person can have any of this general depression apart from like a loss of someone? So loss of someone is definitely a very huge hit on your life. So it's like inevitably everybody is going to suffer with it. But other things like inactivity, or a person who hasn't interacted with the outside world for a long time.
So you
Yeah.
asking like, what causes depression? What is the cause of depression, basically?
Yeah. Right. So what causes depression? So as far as I have read, I've also read about these things, and we definitely, just like you said, this is a very major cause of it. There are other causes which are not taken seriously, are like the not having the desire to go out, not having the desire to meet your friends, not having the desire to eat,
These are all
or
symptoms
like
of depression.
hmm,
These are all symptoms of depression. They're not the cause. They are the
okay.
symptoms of depression. So if you feel these things, that means you're depressed. Okay, so these are like the signs and symptoms of depression. So cause of depression can be anything. It can even be a chemical imbalance in your body. It can also be maybe some lack of some vitamins, because vitamin D, especially vitamin D deficiency, can cause anxiety and depression. So it can be that. It can be hormonal imbalance in your body. It can be some chemical imbalance in your brain, like maybe some amount of serotonin is not being produced correctly. So then you need antidepressants to correct that. And also, it can also be small incidents, like maybe like in your life you constantly feel like everybody is shunning you, everybody's cutting you out, you're not able to mix with people. There can be multiple reasons. There can be small incidents in your life that upset you, and they keep repeating, they keep coming again and again, and eventually you fall into depression. So there can be multiple causes, and it's not easy to know what is the cause of it. Okay, so there are multiple causes of depression. So it's not just one thing. I can't just pinpoint one thing and tell you, okay, this is what causes depression, because even clinical psychologists can't do that, because there are so many underlying causes. Okay, so it could be anything. It depends on who you are as a person. Like, for example, I was diagnosed with a depressive personality, which means that my personality is such that it induces depression in my life. Okay, so this
This
is
is something new. Yeah. So can you elaborate on this?
so I never really looked into it much, because
Actually.
Yeah, because I just got the diagnosis, but I didn't really read into it because I got so many diagnoses all the time that, you get like, so I've just stopped trying to get a proper diagnosis. We just like, like for me right now, it's like how we are treating the symptoms as and when they come up. So the symptoms are being treated, and that's helping me. It's working for me. So it may not work for everyone, but that's working for me at least at this point of time. So I did not look much into it, but what the clinical psychologist I was consulting at that point of time said was that it's like the nature of your personality is such, like maybe the way you think, the way you behave, the way you talk to yourself, okay, the way you view things, okay, the way you perceive events, okay, these the way you look at life in general is what's causing your depression. Okay, it's just because over the years the trauma has manifested, it has changed your personality, it has made you someone who is, more prone to depression than other people. So there might not be an external trigger in my life. It is not necessary that I have an external trigger, but I still will suffer from depression or anxiety because of the kind of personality I developed over the years because of the trauma that I went through. So it's like that. So there are multiple things like this. Okay, so you can't just like list them all out. I've got a really long list. So which I don't even know half the things on that list. So I can't
Right.
really go get into that.
Comment
But
on it.
yeah. Hmm.
This really brings out the importance of what a vigilant vigilant parent should do, because when somebody is young, okay, so he or she does not know what is going around him or her, right? And
Hmm.
it's always the responsibility of the parents to give the child such an experience where that they don't get traumatized in a way which really turns their life in a very, what would say, in a negative manner. You understand?
So what you're talking about, it's called emotional regulation. So what
Acha.
happens is that when you're feeling certain emotions, right? So as a kid, okay, your frontal lobe is not completely developed. You do not take logical decisions. You take emotional decisions based on how you're feeling at that particular point of time. Okay. So this is something very common in children. So it's the parents' duty to teach them emotional regulation, how to not let their emotions consume them. Okay. So
Okay.
yeah, so it's called emotional regulation, and it's something that needs to be taught to you when you're growing up. Otherwise you have to go through CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, to learn those things, to learn those coping mechanisms and all. So emotional regulation is a very important coping mechanism. So it's like, now see, ups and downs are a part of everyone's life. Nobody's life is
Right.
perfect, and it's like sometimes even you're not responsible for it. There are certain external factors that come and wreck it up and they leave. Okay, now it's on you to not let that emotional turmoil that you're going through to take over your entire life. Okay, so and that's not easy, but then that's why it needs to be instilled when you're young and when you're growing up. So there are parents who teach their children, okay, I know what you're feeling right now it's difficult to deal with, but sometimes you have to deal with this. Sometimes this happens and you don't have to let it take over. Okay, and I don't know much about emotional regulation, like I'm not uh, gone into the depths of it, but this is what I've seen people practice and instill in their children. So it is a very important part of parenting, which is not very well known right now, but in the western side of the world people are adopting it quite quick. So it is something that even we need to adopt and we need to introduce into our society, because it is very important. It helps you to not develop certain disorders as you grow up. Okay. So
Right.
yeah, this is
So
the thing that yeah.
So when you talked about the imbalances that cause depression, you mentioned serotonin and another chemical in your body. Oxytocin, nahi, was it oxytocin that you
Dopamine.
mentioned?
It's dopamine.
Dopamines, yeah, dopamine. So what are the chemicals that usually regulate the body and which are good to have in the body and which are not good to have in the body? Like adrenaline is definitely something that we cannot have in excess in our body. One thing, then other one is cortisol we cannot have in our body a lot. So
Mhm.
just like that, these chemicals we cannot have. What are the positive chemicals that we should have, and what are the negative that we shouldn't have?
Okay, so you cannot say that I should have this chemical and I shouldn't have this chemical, because all of these are important to regulate balance in your body. Okay, to create a balance in your body. All of them are important in the needed amounts. Okay, and it's not just the amount of the chemical. Okay, there are other things. There are neural pathways in your brain. So there is this thing. Okay, when you start on antidepressants, you will first feel more depressed at the start. It's a possibility, because the the pathway where your serotonin or the excessive serotonin or the dopamine that you're taking in, via tablets, that same pathway is also activated when you feel depressed. Okay, so the specifics of this I cannot go into because I'm not a psychiatrist, but if
Hmm.
you ask the psychiatrist, they will explain this in detail and they will explain this in depth. So that is why sometimes when you start, so there are these neural pathways in your brain, okay, and they need to be rewired sometimes. That's what antidepressants do, or anti-anxiety medicines and all of these. That's what they do basically in your brain. They change the neural pathways and you change the way you think, in fact. Like I have actually had that, like, so that is why medicines and therapy are important to go hand in hand, because the things you learn in therapy, you cannot like implement in your life until and unless you have that antidepressant that is enabling you to do so. It's opening up your mind and allowing you to think in that way, okay, or think that way. So you can't particularly say that I need this chemical, I don't need this chemical. So all of them, like, so there are required amounts. There are certain medical conditions wherein sometimes your brain gets confused between pain and pleasure. Okay, so there are these kind of things that happen in your body. So all of them got to do with these chemicals and their amounts and all that. So I can't really say that, something, you can't really say that
Mhm.
I shouldn't have this chemical or I should have this chemical. You need all of them, but in balanced amounts.
Balanced
And
amount, right?
yes, yes.
So now that you say that you have been on, what type of medicines do you call those?
Antidepressants.
Antidepressants and those kind of meds. So, what are the myths that people have, and what is it like to take such meds for curing purposes and not for, any other like recreational purposes or something like that?
Mm-hmm. So some of the myths that people have is that, these medicines make you very sleepy, they don't let you function. And this is something I had as well at first. Like when I was hospitalized and I got the first time I was prescribed medicines, my whole life cycle was like this. I used to take my medicines, I used to eat food, I used to take my medicines, and I used to sleep. That's it. That's my whole day. That was my whole day. That's why I stopped taking them at that point of time, because I was not able to do anything else. I was just sleeping. So these medicines inherently, they do make you drowsy, but you need to communicate with your psychiatrist that this is an issue that I'm facing. I'm feeling excessively sleepy. I'm not able to function. I'm not able to do my day-to-day tasks. So what is your remedy? So I did that. Okay. When I started working on my mental health this year, I told my psychiatrist at the start only that in my previous experience, this is what happened with me. So I don't want that to happen again. Otherwise, I'll not be able to function. So he specifically told me to take them at night. Okay. So when I took them at night, I went, they cause sleepiness, but you go to sleep in the morning, you're fine. Okay. So it takes a few days to adjust. And people, like, it
Hmm.
takes at least 20 days to adjust to these medicines and for them to actually start working. And what people do generally is that they take them for a week, take them for a little over a week, and then they're like, this is not working for me, I'm just going to stop it. That's not how it is. That's a biggest myth. It does not give you immediate relief. It takes time to show effects. It takes time to start working in your body. It takes time to actually start implementing, actually start showing improvement. Okay, basically. So you have to wait it out. You have to have that patience to wait it out. It can take up to a month to show positive effects in your life. So this is the biggest myth that people have about these medicines. And sometimes, and sometimes people feel like, I'm taking these medicines, it's working with my neurochemistry, and I don't want to touch that. I don't want to, take medicines. I want to get healed the natural way. But then sometimes it's it's a chemical imbalance in your body. Sometimes you don't know why you're feeling the way you're feeling, because you don't have any particular trigger, you don't have any particular thoughts, or an incident that led up to this, okay, at that particular point of time. So that is when you actually really need medicines. And if you think that, it's not really. So basically, do you know that anxiety and depression can cause actual brain damage to your brain, and antidepressants can reverse this damage. So they can actually reverse this damage, which is very impressive. Okay, so that is the power of antidepressants. And it's not going to mess with you. You have to just be very alert. You have to measure your side effects. You have to measure your symptoms, and you have to communicate those with your psychiatrist. Okay, you have to be on your toes. You can't just be laid back in this. You can't take a laid back approach in this. So if you are alert, if you monitor how it is affecting you, and you report to your psychiatrist, you tell them that this is the inconveniences I'm facing, it's been 2 weeks and the side effects are not gone yet. So then the psychiatrist will change your medicines. Okay. So you need to be alert. It's not that, it's not like they will ruin your neurochemistry or something like that. That's a complete myth. That does not happen at all. All the effects of antidepressants can be reversed. Okay. So it's like, if you don't take it for like a long period of time, so it can be like, you have to be alert, like, this is not working for you. You have to inform your psychiatrist that. So that is a thing. Okay, it's not going to ruin you or something like that. It's not going to happen. By their nature itself, they can't do that.
So we term this meds as antidepressants, right? So is it because it is used to cure only depression, it is called antidepressants, or all mental wellness medicines are called antidepressants? So if somebody is
So
suffering through anxiety, will the tablet we call medicines we call anti-anxiety, or it will be called as antidepressants only?
So the thing is that the line between depression and anxiety is very thin. Okay, because you can
Okay.
get anxiety because of depression. You can get depression because of anxiety. So that happens. So I'm not like a psychiatrist, so I can't really say exactly. But what I have seen in my experience is that antidepressants can be used to treat anxiety. Anti-anxiety medicines can be used in the treatment of depression. So it is a medical term, which I don't know, like, why certain medicines are called. Because from anti-anxiety when I have anxiety, I have been prescribed anti-seizure medicines. Okay, so that is something that has happened. So these medicines can be prescribed, in certain level, in certain amounts. They can be used to cure anxiety. They can be used to cure depression. So it depends. This is very medical, and it's not something I really know that much about. Yeah.
Yeah, so no problem about it. Divya, I have this thought that any psychological or an emotional damage is intangible, right? So it cannot be proved. So if I've slapped you, I'll give you an example. If I have slapped you, it can be seen. There will be prints on your cheeks that somebody has slapped you or someone. But at the same time, if I have done something to you where you are emotionally broken, it isn't visible. Okay, so in those lines, I want to know that how is it, how is it important, how important is it to choose the right therapist, and on what basis can a person say that I am going to the right therapist? Because see, going to an unknown person and telling them about all the traumas or emotional burdens that one is suffering through, or the one has suffered through, and being so vulnerable can be very dangerous. Now, I'm not saying that the therapists have a wrong intention towards any of their clients, because they are very morally, they have a very strong moral compass not to do bad things. At the same time, how do you know that, okay, this is a good therapist or this is not the therapist that, not apt or not fit for me?
Okay. So let's just talk about therapy in general, okay? So the
Mm,
first thing is that a lot of people think, therapy is like, okay, this wonderful cure for whatever I'm going through, okay? Like
mm,
it's just gonna be like, it's like popping a pill, okay? That's what people
mm,
think, of anxiety, of therapy in general. Like they look at it as a just like a solution, like I'll go there and everything will vanish. But that's not the way it works, okay? So therapy in general requires a lot of effort from you, okay? You have to put in effort, otherwise you will not be able to come out of whatever you're feeling. Whatever, it takes a lot of effort. It's really hard work. I literally maintain notebooks for my therapy. So it is that way. You have to take notes, you have to write down what you want to discuss in the next session. And the most important part of therapy is that you have to set goals at the start of therapy. Okay, this is not what everyone does, but it is advisable to set goals, because if you don't have a goal, okay, if you don't know why you're going to therapy, how will you be able to use it to benefit yourself? Okay, so you have
mm,
to set goals at the start of therapy, that this is what I want to achieve out of therapy, this is what I want to get. So when I'm going to therapy, this is the result I want to see in myself. And these goals you can share with your therapist, because that is how you both will work. So it's not just your therapist going to cure you or something. You both have to work as a team to get out of work, to reach that goal. Okay, it's teamwork. So even if
mm.
one link is weak, you will fail. Like, you
You'll
know how
feel right.
teamwork works. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Just to build on this. So this is I had this realization, or my friend who is a therapist told me that many people come to them for feeling better mentally. They might have problem, they might not have problem. That is, let's keep that aside. But the thing is, therapists themselves know that who is really suffering from an XYZ thing that he or she is actually telling, and who is just bluffing and coming for the sake of being fancy. Get what I'm saying?
okay.
Yeah. So what happened is, uh, I couldn't recall in which year, but I can't recall the exact incident right now. But so it's like, if you go to this XYZ therapist, right? And you say that I'm suffering from XYZ thing, and this is the thing I'm going through. They are able to infer if you're really going through these things, or they are not, or you are, just coming for because your friend is going, or because somebody else is going. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Okay.
Yeah, so there have been times that even the therapist have dropped the client. Okay, now I don't want to continue with you because the intended results aren't happening. Number one, or there are many relapses, which is the reason why I cannot invest more energy into it. So yeah,
Okay.
that's what I wanted to share.
I mean, so I don't see, the thing is that when you go to therapy, you have to have a good connect with your therapist.
Hmm.
Okay. And you
Right.
need to know if they are understanding your issue or not. See, I have never heard of anyone going to therapy because it's passion or something like that. Because, in fact, the kind of background I come from, the kind of people I've been surrounded by, I've seen everyone avoiding therapy because they just don't want to look weak. Okay. So for me, it is difficult to imagine what you're saying, that somebody going to therapy for just for the sake of it, because you're spending a lot
No.
of money. Therapy is expensive.
Yeah,
So
right.
I
So
mean, yeah.
what I meant to say is, like, sometimes what happens is, let's say example, have you watched the series Suits?
No, I don't watch series.
You haven't. So there is this character named Harvey Specter, who is like
Mhm.
the lead character of the series. What happens
Okay.
is he is suffering through panic attacks, right? In
Okay.
in the series, in the series. So
Mhm.
to portray panic attacks, Okay, in the series they show that he's having the breathlessness, and there are a other few things. Obviously, the common ones have to be put in for dramatic purposes like breathlessness. But then he goes to the washroom and he, flushes the toilet and think that is what he does. So for a person who is not aware, okay, what exactly is a panic attack?
Hmm.
Okay, and he sees this as a symptom of panic attack, right? So such people can go through therapy like, acha, you know what happened, therapist, I just flushed my toilet. I was feeling very breathless and it made me feel better, but there is something wrong with it. Get what I'm saying? So sometimes even the portrayal in the series or the movies can have a wrong impact on what is actually happening.
Okay. So I wouldn't know about this. I guess therapists would only know. Because
Mm.
I of course don't know, because the people that I come across are usually the ones who need help and they've refused to go.
Mm.
But
Yeah,
there
but
is
this is in
also
very exceptional circumstance. I'm not saying that a lot of people are going. It's like 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000 will be such a case where the people are going just because they watched it in a series or movie or like that.
okay. Okay. Yeah. So only a therapist could comment on that.
Hmm.
But then, so this is okay. So if that happens, I mean, that is understandable. Okay. So I mean, yeah, I guess it is common that happens in the therapy world. Like somebody who is from that world would be able to comment more on it. But then I feel that this also happens from the therapist side, that sometimes they are dismissive of what you're going through. Okay. And you are
Hmm.
actually suffering, but they are dismissive, maybe because they've seen people like that, like the ones you described. So they mistake you
Hmm.
for one of those people. Okay. So you have to be, like you have to be sure that, so at that point of time, you shouldn't doubt yourself, because this actually happened with me. Okay. I went to a clinical psychologist, and for the diagnosis purposes and also for therapy, and she was very dismissive of whatever I was going through. Okay. And everybody in my life could see it. Even at my workplace, it was visible that I'm going through something on the mental health side. So I actually had like, there was a, like, I heard it from my workplace, like that, that we feel like you are going through something on the mental health side. So everybody could see it in my life except her. Okay. And at
Oh.
that point of time, yeah, and she actually went and told my psychiatrist this, that I am just taking it or something like that, and everybody else in my life could see that I'm not, and I myself know that I'm not taking it. So that happened with me. So then I changed immediately. I changed my therapist immediately, because so this is a thing. So you have to be careful. You have to see whether they are truly empathetic or not. Because
Hmm.
so basically, when you become a therapist, you need a degree in psychology. Okay. Clinical psychologists, basically, they have a degree in psychology, they have a master's in psychology. But how much a patient experience they have, you cannot say. Okay. So it is something, so that they also have their own vested beliefs, they also have their own biases, like we spoke at the start, that everybody has their own bias. Okay. Which is, it's human to have a bias. So sometimes they have that bias and they're not able to understand you. Okay. It's not even their fault at times, like, they just can't understand what you're going through, and you need to be careful that, do you feel heard, do you feel understood, do you feel that connect with them, do you feel that they make you comfortable enough to share whatever you're going through, do you feel that comfortable conversation going on with them, do you feel that rapport with them. This is very important. Okay. And then there are different types of therapy. So it's like, you can't be dismissive about one type of therapy, like you just have to see whether it works for you or not. Okay. So sometimes things don't work for you. Okay. It just happens. And because every human being is different. Okay. There is no one size fits all. Okay. That's the same way, like if a therapist work for your friend, doesn't mean the therapist will work for you, because you're different. You might have a different, you also have your own biases, right? You're also not free from bias. So you might have some
Hmm.
biases, they might have some biases, because of which you guys just don't, get that rapport, or don't get that connection, all of that. So so that happens. Okay. So that is very important when you're choosing a therapist. You need to make sure that you have that proper connection. And then I also read a story about so basically, professionally, therapists are not supposed to feel bad if you change, if you decide to
Hmm.
change, because they understand that, there is no one size fits all. Okay, that there is not one, like they might not have that rapport with everyone. Okay,
Hmm.
so they also understand that. Like, for example, there was this therapist who said that there was this guy who used to see him, and he said that that guy just stopped going to him, and he told him that, don't take it personally, I just don't feel challenged enough here in therapy. Like, he maybe wanted someone who challenges him, like
Hmm.
sets goals that are, there are people who like that. So there are like different types of people. Like, some people like to take small incremental steps, and some people like a big challenge to get out of whatever they're going through. Okay, so there are
Hmm.
different types of people like that. So he said that I just don't feel challenged enough, so I'm going to change. And they parted on good terms, basically. So it's like that. So don't worry about how your therapist is going to feel, because if they're a true professional, they will understand that there is no one size
Right.
fits all, and it doesn't always happen that, what worked for others will work for this person as well. Okay,
Hmm.
so
Right.
yes,
Just to
so this
build
is,
on those lines, now have you watched the movie Dear Zindagi, which is like the one with Shah Rukh Khan and Alia Bhatt?
no, I actually don't watch films or series, so like
Oh,
very few
okay,
I watch.
okay. So this is a stereotype that has been portrayed in the movie where Alia Bhatt is the patient and Shah Rukh Khan is the therapist. And the thing is, Alia Bhatt, towards the end of her sessions, starts to, I don't know if she falls in love with the therapist or, starts liking him. Either of those two, but she has that, affection towards the therapist. So how common is this or in the therapy world where where the affection is generated towards the end of session, and how to deal with it if somebody is experiencing that?
So this is something that it is common. Okay, this is
Hmm.
as far as I've seen, that this is actually something that happens, but you have to exercise that control on yourself. Like, you need to not lose sight of what your goals are, okay, when you're coming to therapy. And honestly speaking, if this happened with me, if I felt something from my therapist or something, I would stop those sessions, because then it's not going where I wanted to go, right? It's supposed to be self-improvement. I'm not here to find a match or something like that. I'm here to
Hmm.
improve myself,
Improve
right? So
myself, right?
yes, so frankly speaking, I have always exercised that restraint, okay, especially when the therapist is of the opposite gender. It happens sometimes. So, but then I was like, always, like, I kept this thing straight, that this is something that I will not let it happen in my life. And even if,
Hmm.
despite taking all precautions, if it does happen, you need to change your therapist, because then there is no point, of going to therapy and all of that, because it just loses, like, the dynamic between you and a therapist is not right. That's not
Right.
how it should be, to improve
Right.
yourself and all of that. So that is how you deal with this. Like, you have to be mindful about it. You have to remember why you're here. That's why setting goals is so important at the start of therapy. And also, like, there is, people usually have preferences, like, I want a therapist who is female, I want a therapist who is of this particular age, of that particular
Yeah,
age.
yeah, yeah. That was going to be my next question, and I've actually seen it in one person. Okay, now obviously my experiences are very little, but whatever I'm asking is based on the little experiences and the people I've interacted with. So there was this girl that I was talking to like about 2 years ago, and she
Mhm.
had her XYZ problems and stuff. So she told me that she wants to go for therapy. Okay. And I was like, yeah, you should go. I mean, what else can I say in such a situation? If somebody is telling that he or she wants to go, you should go.
Mm.
And then she told me that, I also recommended her, I have this therapist of mine who she is a really good therapist. And you're going to, if you want, I can give you her number also. But then she
Mm.
was like, "Arey, no, 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 I want a male therapist only." I'm like, that was kind of weird to hear from someone. Okay, why does that preference is there that a female wants a male therapist and a male wants a female therapist? So why do you think is this preference?
Okay, so it is not that a male will want a female therapist or a female will want a male. It is not like that. So it is different from person to person. So basically maybe her issues are with regards to maybe the relationship she has in life. Maybe she wants to see the other side. She wants to see how males perceive it. Okay, maybe she wants to see the male perception of it. Okay, so or maybe she feels more comfortable. Maybe she was closer to her dad when she was growing up, so she feels more comfortable confiding in someone who is male and elder to her. Okay, so she feels more comfortable in confiding. Means, it is the aura that the person gives. Okay, it is, so you need to feel comfortable, right? You need to be able to share with them. You need to be able to, bring out all those things that you've not even like probably told anyone in your life. You have to tell them. Okay, so it's not a have, it's up to you, obviously, but if it is important for your recovery, that you have to do. So you should feel comfortable. Okay, you should feel the comfortable in talking. Now, if I was growing up and all my female teachers were rude to me, okay, and they never understood me, but my male teachers were more understanding and they were less strict, or they were some,
Judgmental.
so yes, so I will feel more comfortable confiding in someone male. So it's the way you grow up. Okay, it's a perception you have of people, it's a perception you have of particular gender, it's a perception you have of a particular age. Okay, so that is why there is this particular preference, where you feel more comfortable in sharing. So it is not inappropriate at all to have a preference like that. It is not inappropriate, it is not weird or something, it is very general, and it is normal to have that. Okay, and everybody has that to some extent. But for me, it is like I am okay with anything. Okay, so I just want them to have that bond with me and be able to, understand me and not judge me. You don't want to be judged, basically. You should, the person should seem to be non-judgmental. Sometimes the person not judgmental, but you feel like they are judgmental. It's your perception, basically. Again, it comes on your perception. So that is the way. So this preference is very normal, and it is not something inappropriate or they have something bad in their mind or something like that. But this is the way it is, usually.
Right. So you said that you are okay with, you don't have such a preference with the therapist. So do you have a perception for not having such a therapist?
Yeah,
So,
right.
no, I mean,
I
if you see XYZ things in that person, like eliminate this. So, do you have
hmm.
such a thing? What is it?
So basically, I don't like people who are like, like a little so sometimes, people put up a front. Okay. So if I am going to be frank, if I am going to put down all my walls and I'm going to talk to you, you also need to be frank with me. You can't be, somebody who's putting up a front, being somebody they're not really inside, like I cannot bear that, right? Kind of fake thing, when the person is being fake with you, you can tell they're being fake. So when someone is being fake with you, it is very, very, very common that they don't understand what you're going through. Okay, so why would you want such a person to be a therapist, right?
Right.
So I cannot like stand that in my therapist. Okay, and so that is one big red flag for me. So I need them to understand, empathize with what I'm going through. I don't want them to secretly think that I'm not going through anything and I'm just here for attention or something like that. I cannot obviously deal with somebody like that. Okay, so yeah, actually the thing is I'm very open, okay, about whatever I go through. Like I don't have that issue in opening up to a therapist. Okay, so because of that, sometimes people think that, because I'm so open about what I've gone through, I'm fake or something, or I just made it up, or I'm lying or something. So people have that perception because I'm a little bit open about what I'm going through. But that's just because that I grew up like I wanted to go to therapy since I was in ninth standard. Okay, so I have like spent a lot of years wanting to go to therapy and wanting to open up and all. So it is easy for me to open up because I grew up with that mindset that I want to open up to get better. So it is specific to me, but people don't understand. Not everybody understands,
Right.
even if they're a licensed therapist, they may not
Yeah,
understand that. So,
for me, such a thing that eliminates कि नहीं इसको therapist नहीं बनाना है is if the therapist is younger than me. Does not matter
okay.
male or female, but if they are in the same age group, like I'm 24, so if he or she is 22 or 23 or 26 or 27, then I just eliminate that option कि नहीं, because how am I supposed to take solution from someone who is suffering through a same problem or a similar problem, right? Of a, not only mental health but any other problem wise. I always have preference for a person who is like, at least
Older.
5 years elder to me, at
Hmm.
least to say, come, I cannot go. It's like you're talking to a friend then. You
Hmm.
get it? So if you are a therapist, I would certainly ask you, "Okay, acha, what should I do?" But I wouldn't come to you for therapy. You
Hmm.
understand? If you recommend
Hmm.
me, acha, go to XYZ, I would do that. But if you would tell me, "Ki, acha, no problem, I can, I can be a therapist," that would be a big no for me. But
Hmm.
because we are the same age, then how are you have that, how are you in a position to tell me what should I do? So
So
that
that
is
is
that is the only one thing that I have. Otherwise, I am also fine with, the male or female or, elder one. That is fine with me.
yeah. So that is based on your perception, right? Because that's probably what you've seen growing up. Okay, so it is different for
Hmm.
different people. Yeah.
Right. So, Divya, now it's been like quite some time that you have been outspoken about your own mental wellness and stuff. So, how do you open up to someone who is, being a, I don't have the right word, so I'm going to use what I regularly use, who is being a pain in your ass, okay, and you want to let him know or her know that, listen, I don't have the capacity to tolerate your nonsense. Okay, I have my own set of very huge problems, and I also am suffering through anxiety. So don't pester me with your bullshit. So how do you open up to such a person?
Okay. So the thing is that it's important to know who is worth opening up to and who is not. Now you described an insufferable personality, somebody who tries to, suck your energy and, like basically they just make you feel low overall. So I would say that
Okay.
such a person is not worth opening to because they will never understand. It's like it's just you wasting your energy trying to make them
Hmm.
understand what you're going through, but they won't because they're not empathetic enough. They don't give a damn, to be honest. They don't care what others might be going through. Okay, they are more self-centric. Okay, so such people are not worth opening up to. You cannot talk to them, you cannot try to reason with them. So best is to, suppose if the person is at your workplace, maintain a professional relationship with them, maintain your distance, keep your distance, and just stay away from them. So it's like, it's very important. So if somebody is being insufferable or being somebody who is, like he's being quite mean to you, and you've seen them do that to other people as well, so that clearly shows that they don't take a minute to think what this person might be going through, because everybody goes through something or the other at one point of time. So they don't think how their words or actions might be affecting someone. So why will they even care if you're going through something? Okay, so such people are not worth wasting your energy and opening up to. Rather, they will ridicule you more if you open up to them. They will say you're faking it, or they will talk behind your back, or they will just degrade everything that you're going through. They will degrade your whole struggle. They will completely, what do you say, not give it its true value. Like, they will devalue it. They will devalue your struggle. They will make it look like it is like, not something worth caring for or worth listening to, and it will make you feel worse in the end. So it's really not worth it to open up to such people. And whenever
Have
you're
Have you ever thought? Have you ever thought of slapping such kind of a person? Like if you're in office and just that person is very, apathetic towards one's condition. So we just like, have you ever had a thought? Okay, does that even thought cross one's mind? Okay, इसको मैं आज एक लगा देता हूँ क्या करके? Just one slap will be enough to get him in line.
so okay, so violence is like, so it is, so when you have anger issues, like you get angry easily, so you might have certain violent thoughts. Okay, like, I want to slap this person or do that. So but then so it's normal to think like that. It's normal to have those kind of thoughts when you don't like someone, or they really really devalue you, and they just make you feel miserable. Okay, so you are looking like a way to vent out your misery that they have caused. So obviously you're going to imagine slapping them or being like, physically abusive or anything like that. But then you should not, like, like, it happens to a lot of people, happens to everyone, in fact. But you should not really, feel like, let the thought stay with you for long. And you should also, like, not, like, beat yourself up for having that thought, because that happens sometimes. As long as you're not putting it into action,
Acting on the
yes, as long as you're not acting on it, it's okay. And you should not let that thought linger, though. You should not keep it in your head for long, because that's not healthy. And because in general, violence does not solve anything. Like it just makes both of you all angrier, okay, because they are going to retaliate. So it becomes like a vicious cycle wherein there's anger beating with anger. So it's like, it's best to avoid such people, okay? And it's best to set boundaries, okay? It's very important to set boundaries, okay? Never forget to set boundaries, because when you don't set boundaries, that's when these people get that leverage to reach that violent part of you, which is like somewhere there inside everyone. It's basically your adrenaline, which says fight or flight. So it's a fight part, basically. Getting it? So when you let someone influence those chemicals in your body, it's like you're letting them come too close, okay? So it's very important to set boundaries and not let anyone affect you, like in this manner. So this is like if you're going for therapy, this should be one of your goals. How do I set those boundaries? How do I not let people affect me? How do I not this is one of my goals in therapy. Like, I don't want to ever be affected by somebody else. I don't want my mood to get spoiled because of somebody else, because they might be going through something, they might be projecting on you. They might have their own issues, they might be projecting on you, okay? So why should you suffer? Why should you have that elevated levels of adrenaline in your body? Why? Because too much adrenaline is bad. It's harming you. So why should you have that? So this is one of the goals you should have in therapy, that not to let such people get to you. So basically, I just want to say that if you're going through something, okay, you tend to isolate yourself. It gets difficult to take help. It's difficult to take help because the way it is perceived in the society, it makes you feel weak, it makes you feel vulnerable, okay, to open up to someone or to get help, okay? But please don't let that affect you. Like, you have to open up, but so the thing is, what people say commonly is that when you open up, you get hurt in the end. That's what people say. So to avoid that, you need to be careful about who you're opening up to. You should open up, but you need to be careful about who is that person that you're opening up to, okay? That is why when you open up to someone, don't open up entirely. First, start in small installments, see how they react, okay? And if they make you feel worse about what you're feeling, just move on, just find somebody else. And best is to go to a licensed therapist and open up to them, okay? So that is the best thing. And but like, it is very, very difficult to open up when you're in depression. Don't feel like doing anything. Don't even feel like getting up and opening the door and walking out of it to see the doctor, okay? So don't walk out of the door. Make a phone call. Give a text message. Send a text message out to someone, okay? But do something. Don't let it paralyze you. Do something, because this is your life and you just can't let it slip away like that, okay? It's important that you're happy. It's important that you're fulfilled. It's important that you're living up to your true potential. So it's just really, really important that you find someone to talk to, or you seek help, or you get psychiatric help or therapeutic help. It's very, very important. If you're going through something, just don't suffer alone. Don't do that to yourself, because you deserve more. You deserve better. You deserve to get better. You deserve to heal. You deserve to live life to the fullest. Okay? Don't lose yourself to this, because it's all curable. It's all completely curable or manageable. Okay? So you don't have to suffer. So why should you let yourself? Okay? So that is something that I would say as a closing note.
That's a really fantastic message to everyone who will be listening to this podcast. And I hope they reach this point where they have listened to every minute of it, because every minute of it is an insightful thought that why should one go to therapy, what kind of people you should open up to, what is the difference between anxiety and depression, what are the symptoms, and how to choose a therapist. Every minute of it is really insightful. And Divya, I really appreciate you doing this with me today, and I'm glad that we could do this and we could catch up.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me
So now I'm
and giving me
stopping the
that
recording.
platform.
Just
Yeah.
1 minute, I'm stopping the recording.